Hello.
It's very
Hello?
soft.
Yes, it's very quiet.
Let me disconnect and reconnect.
I tell you what, let's let Beth go while you're getting the technical work out. Beth, we'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Beth. I'm a junior from England. I'm on the tennis team here. So
Nice.
English major, French major as well.
Nice.
Nice to meet you. Okay, Jacob's going to leave us and come back. Okay, Madison, we'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Madison. I am a senior here at PC. I am a NARP. I'm a non-athletic regular person. And I am majoring in biochemistry and minoring in Spanish. Oh, he's back.
Great. And here's Jacob's back. Let's try and having you introduce yourself again.
Hear me now. Is this better?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. So I'm Jacob. I'm a freshman here at PC. I like to write. I'm in the current process of writing a book at the moment. Not that far in. I'm only in 2 chapters in right now in it. I like to read. Also like to play video games. I'm also the owner and creator of my own YouTube channel, Ace10617 right now on YouTube. So, yeah.
Can you say that slower?
Put the link in the chat, and that way we can all subscribe so you have more subscribers.
Yay. I'll do that right now.
The gaming?
Perfect.
Yeah, I do gaming.
Okay, and our guest is David Underwood. Our other guest, I've already introduced Kendall, is David Underwood. He is a PC graduate from 2005, and his job title is Net Development Manager, and his hobbies and pastimes are family and kids, gardening, trees, farming, hiking, exploring the outdoors, astronomy, and classic cars. So for our agenda this afternoon, what we're going to do is we're going to do a spotlight on Kendall and then David, and if Nicole gets here, we will have her spotlight as well. And then we'll just chat about when things don't go as planned, as we're kind of flexing this afternoon because one of our special guests has not shown up. And so right now I'm going to switch this to a spotlight on Ms. Kendall. And Kendall, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and then share your story with us?
Yeah, so my name's Kendall. Like Lynn said, I like to rock climb. Really big into hanging out with my dog. He's probably my best friend. I like to hike, anything outdoors. And my pivot story is about a time when I applied for a job that I really, really wanted. And then when I got to the day, my first day, I was being trained in a different job. So I got hired for one thing and then they were training me on a completely different job. So this was my first job out of undergrad. It was for an outdoor sunglasses company, and I was my goal was to work for an outdoor company, and they also had good environmental policies in place, and they were super eco-friendly, so was super stoked about it. The position was for what was the title? Customer service representative. So I was going to be doing emails and dealing with customers on a daily basis. And the interview went really well. And then the next day they called me back in for a second interview. And during that second interview, I got the job and I started the next day. I came in the next day, instead of being taken to a computer, I was taken to the warehouse end of the sunglasses place, and I started to be trained in how to package orders, how to do inventory, basically all warehouse stuff, which is not what I was hired for. But I was young and didn't know what to do, so I didn't say anything, and I ended up becoming a fulfillment specialist. And just the moral of the story is that I did enjoy the fulfillment specialist job, but them hiring me and then training me on something else without letting me know it was going to be in a different position, what should have showed me what kind of company this was. And this company ended up not working out for me in the end because of the just certain situations that happened. But if you are hired for one thing, make sure when you're going in that that is the job that you are doing. You're not being trained on something else. Your job isn't, and it's like what you want it to be type of thing. So yeah, that's my pivot story where I didn't really pivot. I kind of just continued with the job because I was young and didn't know what I was doing.
Wow, that's a really challenging situation.
Yeah.
That trying to figure out how to pivot in a situation where you've got an authority figure, your boss,
Yep.
and the job description, and not knowing how much leeway you might have.
Mhm.
In retrospect, is there anything that you think that could have created the option to make a pivot out of that?
Yeah, so I think I could have definitely talked to my boss and just say like, "Hey, I was hired for a customer service representative. What like is this part of that or is this something completely different?" And eventually I did have that conversation after a few months into it. I think just because I liked the fulfillment part of it, I was okay with it, but I wasn't okay with the fact that I was hired for something else. And I eventually brought it up. And what ended up happening was that they interviewed me and they wanted me to do a customer service representative job. But that same day, they ended up letting go of their fulfillment specialist. So they decided just to bring me in the next day to do their fulfillment. So it was like a whole confusing thing. So I definitely could
They
have
were the
like
ones who did a
talked
pivot.
to him.
Yes, they did the pivot. They had a situation where they needed an immediate solution, and so they thought of you as the solution to their problem, and you were
Yep,
their pivot.
yep, I was.
Oh, the challenges of life as the person who's pivoted
Yeah,
on, I guess you
it
might say.
that definitely taught me a lot. That taught me how, like I wanted to be treated in a position and like what kind of companies I really liked in working for and how to work with like different types of people that weren't necessarily my same personality type. So it did teach me a lot.
I think that during the pandemic, we've seen a lot of people having pivots in their job where what they're doing at work is not what they had been doing before that or what
Yeah.
they thought they would be doing. As students, you can nod your heads if you're finding that you're having to pivot as a student. You're sign up for classes and they're not going like what you expected when you sign up for these classes. Is that kind of what you're feeling too, folks? I'm going to stop our spotlight now so that we can everybody can talk or see each other or whatnot. So yeah, so you're kind of saying that's a little bit of what you've experienced too as a student. We don't have all career-related stories because we wanted to talk a little bit about how challenges and change in plans come in lots of different forms. And so I don't know what David's story is. He hasn't shared it. This is kind of a surprise to me. But when we initially talked, I told him it did not have to be career-related, so it may be. We might end up with all career. But let me make him a co-host so that I can allow him to be a spotlighted person. So, David, welcome to Presbyterian College. It's been a while since you've been here. Things look a little flatter now than they did when you were here?
A little what? Flatter?
Like two-dimensional, huh? Does everything look a little two-dimensional today instead of three-dimensional like a student?
It is amazing how much things have changed over the years. You know, the new buildings and that sort of thing. Quite a different area around. You know, even the football field was being built while I was there, the new one, and the old one's gone now. So quite a few changes. But good to be able to be with you all today. I mentioned David Underwood. My title may have been interesting. So it's .NET Development Manager. Basically, I'm a software development manager for Hubble out of the location in Greenville, although I do work from home quite a bit right now all the time. We deal with a lot of folks. A lot of our developers are actually offshore in India. We have a number of them in the United States as well. So it's we have vendors that are in Ukraine. So it's a really good opportunity to get to work with people across the globe. And I guess the interesting thing about the pandemic is I was already working with people over Zoom, Teams, that sort of thing. So not a lot of difference. The good thing is with this stuff, it's building skills that you'll be able to use in the workplace for sure when you start having virtual meetings and that sort of. Yeah, and so I've had kids and families. One of my first things that's what I enjoy the most, spending time with the kids. I have 3 kids, 7-year-old, 3-year-old, 7-year-old boy, 3-year-old girl, and a 11-month-old, about to be 1-year-old son. So they keep me pretty busy, but we like the outdoor stuff. Lets us get outside. We live in Breakport, South Carolina, so we can get out in the woods here, go up to Chimney Rock, and just other places around. And then, of course, astronomy comes with being outside. If you're outside at night, you might as well enjoy it. And I have a '57 Chevy Bel Air, so that's where the classic cars are. So I like fiddling with those. I've got two things to talk about. One is career oriented, the other is not. The first one that's career oriented was my time at PC. It was my first job. Didn't really know it was going to be a job. So started out, it was going to be just a internship, or to go and learn at a place. It was Anderson Hardwood Floors, which is based there in Clinton. They don't have their office there anymore, but um, I was told by my professor, hey, there's an opportunity over there, just an internship thing. Just run over there and just talk to them, and then probably you can start doing some stuff with them. And it was about web development. So I went over there to meet with them. Nothing spectacular, not a lot of planning around it, right? Just because it was supposed to be just a hey, quick meet and greet kind of thing. I go in and sit down in the IT manager's office, and he was like, "All right, glad you're here to interview with me today for our job as a web developer." And I'm like, "What? Surprise!" Obviously I didn't do that, but I was like, "Well, I guess I'm doing an interview now." Um, so I went through the interview, and I would have probably dressed differently. I just had a polo on and khakis on. I wasn't dressed in a suit or anything. And but I did have the ability to answer questions that he asked. So we went through that. And one of the good things that I had was a website where I had a PDF portfolio of work that I'd done, and was able to provide that to him right there on the spot to check it out and check out some of the websites that I'd developed. And we went through those on his computer, and I left really interested in it, but I was like, man, I wonder how that's going to go. And before I got home, they called and offered me the job there. So that was a great opportunity, something I didn't see coming. It was definitely a blessing in my life. And that really set me up for my career, honestly. I worked there for 8 years, progressed through to IT manager there before I left, and they were actually purchased by Shaw, so got some experience with the larger corporation as well. So it's what you can, if you always kind of, people say have a plan B, whatever, have kind of think about all those different things that may happen as much as you can, especially around jobs, and just have information available. And always, if you're doing an interview the people as much as they're interviewing you, because you want to know about them as much as you're going to be with them, hopefully for a while. The second thing was first place to live. So out of college, just got married, was looking for apartments, and went and looked at a ton of apartments. Back then, 2000, 2006, there's no Google Maps that was on a mobile device. So it was pretty hokey having to do that. But found an apartment in Simpsonville, and we went ahead and signed up for the apartment. Thought it was going to be great, and went by a couple days later to show my mother-in-law, hey, this is where we're going to be living. Went to show the apartment, and we went and looked through the window, and you could see this like huge spot of black mold on the ceiling, right? Not what you want to go and live in. I mean, it was huge and gross. So went to the front. I was like, guys, this is not, you showed me an apartment. It was not this. It was not this one. You've moved me to a different apartment. This one's got this mold. And they said, well, we haven't cleaned it yet. You weren't supposed to go look through the window. Sorry, we can't refund your deposit if you don't want to stay here. And it's just, that's all we can do. You cannot come here. That's your choice. Needless to say, I was pretty irritated by that. But ultimately, for our health, we decided not to. But that helped me to be very careful in future endeavors to make sure that all the bases were covered, and that there were those outs for situations like that. So if you are going to do an apartment or do a rental, always make sure that what you're signing up for is the exact apartment that you're going to get. You know what you're going to get, and you can see it beforehand, so you don't get hoodooed by people.
Wow. Wow, that's two different, totally opposite ends of the spectrum. One really planned happenstance, something great coming out, but also having options and having backup plans.
Yeah, I would have loved to have sued them, but didn't have the money at the time.
So I'm going to put a couple of words into chat that came to mind as you were talking. Growth mindset is the first thing that came to mind. Growth mindset being where you're always ready for the opportunity to grow out of a situation. If something goes wrong, you're ready to grow from it and open to the possibilities of, if it happens to be a mistake on your part, in your case it was not, but learning from those opportunities. The first thing that came to my mind, though, was planned happenstance, and that's that openness to opportunities and being ready to see an opportunity when it comes in front of you and be ready to respond to opportunities, because so often we miss out on opportunities when we don't have our eyes open, when we're not ready for or willing to accept something that's not part of our initial plan. So it's not just a matter of having a plan B sometimes, but tell me a little bit about how your mindset allowed you to be open to a job offer that you hadn't even been aware was going to be a possibility.
Well, I mean, a lot of it was, of course, me interviewing them as they interviewed me. So the place itself, I learned a little bit about it during the process. So that made me more open to it. I was really looking for a job, honestly. As far as was I looking for a job, I was always, from the point I started college, thinking toward where my job was going to be, what I was going to do when I got out of college. Because that's why I was there, to get the skills and stuff, and the relationships for that next stage of my life. So when the opportunity presented itself to go ahead and be engaged in the workforce at a location and begin extending those skills that I needed and growing further, I couldn't really not jump on that. And they were also willing to work with me as a student to say, okay, you don't have to go full time, 40 hours a week. We'll let you work in the evenings if you want to. They gave me a really flexible schedule. So I'd go and work sometimes from 2 p.m. to 8 or 9 o'clock at night, that sort of thing. And yeah, it's a challenge because you have to budget your time, especially when you're in school, to make sure you're not missing things that you need to as far as schoolwork goes. But I always had a bit. It started in high school. I had kind of my own side business, building computers and doing development and that sort of thing. So to be able to transition to a company and get those additional skills made a big difference. So I enjoyed that. And I was in the HR. I was over in the HR area. So that was cool too, because I got to work with the HR people and learn a little bit more about the employees that were working there. As people would come in and apply for jobs, and just kind of help them with some tools that they could use to grow the company as well. Our benefits program, I volunteered on that. So if you're in a company, one thing I can say is when you get a job, don't ever be stuck thinking that's not my job. If you have an opportunity to expand yourself by volunteering within the company on things like a committee within the company for a benefits improvement, whatever it may be, that's a really great thing to do. And that way you get exposure to different parts of the company, you get to work with people and get to know them. That's really key, is being willing to be open to new ideas, to work with other areas in the company and to learn new things, and don't just isolate yourself to, this is my job and I'm not going to do anything that's not on my job description. Of course, you want to, not do too much stuff to where you're not getting your main job done, but it's always good to do that. And then be involved outside in the community as much as you can. So I like to encourage people to be involved with groups that help them grow in their field. So for me, there's the Developers Guild in Greenville. Kind of harder with COVID, but they meet typically once a month. There's also Tech After 5 in Greenville. It's not just developers, that's really anybody in the tech sector, but it can be other areas as well. And that's a great one just for networking skills. They have an online version of it with Zoom, and then they meet once. Froze there. Hopefully the whole thing didn't freeze. Can you all still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but you're not moving, so there's a little bit of a hiccup.
That's okay.
I
think we're good now.
There we go.
Yes, but it's a good way just to improve your skills of networking and talking with people. But there's different ones. There's Toastmasters. That's another one that's in the Greenville area that you could get involved with to learn uh, help with public speaking and when you get up and give presentations at work or at school, anything like that. So
Oh,
that's
that's a
three things.
great idea. Yeah, you may have seen in chat, I put bonus life lessons. David's really sharing some great ideas. And I think that there are Toastmaster groups on college campuses, but we haven't had one here. But it is something, if there were enough students interested, we've got two who are about ready to graduate, so you two are probably not interested in starting new groups, but Jacob is right on the ground running, and so it may be that you would be interested in being part of trying to start something along the lines of a Toastmasters group on campus, Jacob. Particularly with your YouTube interest, doing a virtual networking kind of group might be a possibility. So I've stopped the spotlighting, and I'll turn the sound down just a little bit to give us some background music so we can just chat and share your thoughts or things that you've had to pivot with and whatnot. I think I'm still a little bit louder than I mean to be. Yeah, I think we're going to have to do without the background music. Sorry about that. We'll turn it up every once in a while for just a brief moment or so. Any thoughts on growth mindset? Let's start with that. We're small enough, I don't know that we need to do breakout sessions.
So I do have my own story of kind of getting like something
Yeah.
happened without a complete total. So this is more related to me getting my Eagle rank. So the first thing what happened was, I moved from Illinois to South Carolina between my 7th and 8th grade year, and that summer between those 2 years. I did take a break from scouting because I got tired of the troop I was part of. But at that point, when I stopped for 2 months, I was first class. I moved down here. I started up with a new troop. I had to start from the beginning, like 100% from the beginning, getting my scout rank all the way up to first class to Life Star and then eventually Eagle. I had to rush a lot more than I would like to because of having to start over was not planned. And there was definitely a frustrating experience for me because I ranted a lot about it because I was, mad about it. But I did learn some new things and whatnot from it. So even if you are set back, it's not always a bad thing.
Sometimes the hardest part is dealing with the anger of having setbacks that are unexpected, that you feel like are somebody's fault besides your own. I can imagine there might have been some tendencies or temptation toward anger for Kendall in her particular position, and for David with his apartment, and it sounds like definitely with what happened with you with the scouting. Beth, Madison, either one of you have a story or an experience where something happened where what you were expecting didn't turn out and there was that level of frustration that almost made you feel anger?
Yeah, I can go. So when I first came to America, I was recruited by a coach for the tennis team, and everything was going great. I was playing really well, and she liked me. We had a good relationship. And then we played a tournament, and we did really well. We won loads of matches, and we had a meeting the next day, and we were all really excited, thinking we were gonna get praise or something like that. And then she just bursts into tears and says that she's quitting the team and she's leaving, and we were just oh.
Abandonment.
We were completely without a coach for a whole month. So we were getting up at 6:30 in the morning, just training ourselves. And it was horrendous. And then we got a coach who was not at all like that. And I didn't play the whole of my freshman year because he didn't rate me as a player. And yeah, it was really bad. But now we have a good coach. So I think it just taught me to you can come across hardships and they can be really tough to deal with. And like, especially being so far away from home, I was quite emotional through it because it was just completely not what I was expecting. But I feel like I just stuck with it, and now we have a coach who really respects people who like work hard, and yeah, I think it just taught me to be strong and just keep going through working hard, and you'll reap the rewards at the end.
Yeah. It sounds like both you and Jacob have developed some grit. Are y'all familiar with that term, grit? That kind of perseverance and pushing through those hardships. Well, everybody who's spoken so far. Madison, how about you? You haven't shared anything yet.
I was living abroad when the pandemic hit. I was living in Spain. So I was like supposed to travel, and I had a trip to Italy and France, and like had been to Portugal and was living in Sevilla with my host family. And then COVID hit, and I found out that Spain declared a state of alarm at the top of the cathedral bell tower. That was fun. Um, really horrible, but it like taught me a lot because like I learned a lot of Spanish. Like can speak Spanish pretty well now because my host family didn't speak English. And after the first 5 days of the Spanish quarantine, all of my roommates were gone. So like, unless I was on the phone, I didn't speak English. And then I also just like you kind of learn to roll with the punches because there wasn't really much I could do. Like I couldn't leave my apartment. I couldn't go anywhere. Going home wasn't really an option. So like I was kind of just a sitting duck, and I just had to make do with what I had. So like I made myself a schedule. I got up every morning, I worked out, I ate breakfast, I did my schoolwork, I studied for the MCAT. Like you just kind of have to make do. And then I also like I'm a believer, and so the Lord like taught me during that season of life that like I like really had to lean into him because I like didn't have anything else to lean into. At that point everything else had been stripped away. And so I like my relationship with the Lord grew a lot during that time as well, and that was really cool.
Finding hidden opportunities and hidden blessings whenever we run into challenges is always one of the keys to having that positive growth mindset. And for you, it sounds like faith was the key, probably the primary key to having a positive growth mindset rather than letting it turn into something negative. And it's really important for us to be able to do that. I've got this scary background here. Maybe I should get rid of the background because we're coming out of scary places instead of into scary places. I will share with you that I did get an email from our other guest who had an emergency at work and will not be able to join us this afternoon. So we do have more time to just chat than we originally thought it was going to be because I had allotted about 20 minutes for the presentation portions, and so we really were just going to start the conversational part around now. And so we're a little bit ahead of schedule. We can kind of just chat about how things are going on. COVID has on campus caused some pivots, whether David and Kendall for work, a new campus to be and not really get to meet students as much face to face. Glad you can meet students here this afternoon. David, you said for you it was not as much of a pivot because of the type of work that you do. What have been some of the challenges that any of y'all have faced? And we could even break up into 3 breakout rooms if y'all wanted to talk one-on-one. That's fine too. Or I'm comfortable just staying here, but
Yeah,
if you want
so
to
that
one-on-one
means
conversation, yeah. So what are some of the challenges you're finding with COVID for your classes beyond just the frustrating technology?
okay. I guess stop my thing about internet because Zoom always seems to fail at some point for me during my classes, even though when we didn't have to do the 2-week quarantine thing we were right now during PC right now, where all in-person classes have been halted for 2 weeks. I only had one class twice a week that was in Zoom only, whatnot, and it just like I have issues sometimes not hearing teacher talk or in the middle of a discussion because it's a discussion-based class, so that's frustrating. But if anything, it's not really leaving the dorm room, I guess, because I leave the dorm room, I go to class. I'm actually getting some exercise, and since 2 weeks, I've just been lazy and just not doing anything, just sit in my desk for most of the day and then lay. go to bed. So I guess that's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I would think so. And Beth, you're kind of in the same situation here because you do have practice, I guess, independent maybe, rather than as a team. Do you get to still play some independently? And Madison, you had that in Spain, where you were basically confined to a house rather than a room, but still, for what was it, about a month that you couldn't go out except once a week or something?
I didn't leave my apartment from March 13th until May 2nd.
Wow. That's wild.
Like I would work out on the terrace. We had like a terrace we were a 5th floor apartment. So I could like look over the edge and do like HIIT workouts. Didn't have a lot of space. It was really unfortunate when it rained.
Yeah.
The host.
Have you been able to exercise any or get tennis practice in or play any tennis during the 2 weeks that it's been all virtual, or have you been restricted from doing any of that?
Yeah, we haven't been allowed to play at all. So it's kind of hard because I feel like tennis has just been sort of the escape from it. But just in general, my tennis, I feel like it's just an escape from everything. So especially with COVID, like in the summer when COVID like first hit, like I think the situation in England was very similar to that of Spain, where like we literally couldn't go out, like nothing was open. Like you could leave the house for like I think we had rules on like 1 hour of exercise a day or something. Like no tennis courts were open or anything. So
Yeah, that's rough.
When I was in Spain, like you could go out for food and medical care. And then May 2nd, they were like, okay, you can go outside for a walk or like for exercise, like
Well,
between this time and this time during the day. We were like dogs. We got to go out in the morning and then got to go out in the evening.
Wow.
That's really, really restrictive, whereas I think even in places in the United States where there were restrictions, for the most part, except for some large urban areas, you could still go outside your home. So it's one time when space was a benefit, perhaps, to having that flexibility to at least go outside.
That's what I've noticed, at least what I've seen from people is a positive thing, and it seems like more people are going out and going on hikes or going to state parks. So, because there's not really many other options, you're not going to go to the movies necessarily. So, or you can go to the movies, but it's the drive-in. By the way, there's a drive-in in Greenwood, so if y'all are looking for movies, there's the drive-in down there. 25drivein.com. So we did that back during the summer. But I think that's a benefit. It gives people a little more active and gets them exposed to things maybe that they weren't exposed to before. Maybe they didn't know about parks in their area or things like that. So now they do. I know that for us, that's what we've done a lot of. And we kind of live out in the country, so we go out around here quite a bit. But we found ourselves doing more of that than we normally would. I do miss the opportunity to do like the networking events and that sort of thing. And it's as much as virtual stuff is cool, it's still not the same. There's still an element that's missed. And I think that's something else too that we've learned through it is you can get a lot from a virtual event, but it's still not quite. There's that element of humanity that you just can't replace with a computer, as much as we try to. And I think that's a good thing. And I think that's something, you mentioned, the Lord. I think that's something that's built into all of us is that. And I think one thing that this has helped us all do is learn how to deal with things that seem like despairing, right? You've got this circumstances that are beyond your control. And a lot of people in the world like to be in control and like to feel like they're in control. But when you're not in control and there's something like a virus out there that you can't control, that nobody can control, it kind of reminds you that God's in control. And so that's where the faith comes in to say, hey, we've there's a plan for everything, and God's going to bring us through this. And I think that's been another positive aspect, I would say. When you can find a lot of stuff. You can find a positive aspect. And so those are the things to look at. Technology-wise, I think we've learned a lot. Um, you know, found new ways to do things. One thing that um, a lot's being used is uh, Microsoft has a technology that basically lets you use virtual goggles to be able to go into a plant and review equipment and do maintenance on it virtually. Somebody can walk in, the vendor on the other end can see through a meeting exactly what they're seeing, and you can have artificial intelligence stuff that pops up on it as well to help identify parts of the machinery. All that stuff's things that we're working on that maybe would not have been invested in. A lot of the stuff we've seen in the advances in healthcare, our communication networks for stuff, probably wouldn't have happened if we hadn't had the virus. So.
That's really great. I'm glad that you kind of took the conversation in the direction that you did, the spiritual part, but also just that whole concept of it being not just in COVID that we look at there being changes, that sometimes the change that is initially comes across as bad or has some bad things also carries some good things with it, like your job opportunity, and Kendall, like some of the skills that you built in the job that you ended up with that you had not really interviewed for. That happens a lot with students in their career exploration. You may come into school with a particular plan in mind that was, this is what I want to do. Sometimes you come in with no plan in mind. You're like, I want to get a 4-year degree, and I think I want to study this, but after that I don't have a clue what I want to do. So being ready to see what changes or what situations heighten awareness within you about what's a good fit for you. As you go through a particular crisis, what are the things that stand out to you that you learn about yourself that help you figure out what might be a better fit for you? If being cooped up in one place is frustrating for you on a 2-week basis, do you want a job where you're in a cubicle 9 to 5, 5 days a week, year round? If that's okay, as long as you have some personal interaction and get out and talk to people outside of work hours, then you've learned that about yourself. If 2 weeks is bearable, but not the end of the world. So what are some things that you've learned about yourself that might apply to how you look at your future in work?
Well, during the pandemic, I think that we were all in quarantine, but then I also moved to Simpsonville during the pandemic, not knowing anybody. So I think that's definitely taught me that I like a work atmosphere where I get to like collaborate with other people and talk to other people. Like I was very convinced that I really liked to be alone all the time, and that is not true. I like to be around people often. So I think that was something that came out of like moving in the pandemic for me.
Uh-oh, we lost your sound.
Work with students a lot, so I like to be around people.
Do you you said Simpsonville, so do you go to the ice cream station?
I live right next to the ice cream station.
So you
That's
definitely
one of the most beautiful yet unfortunate things in the world.
Yeah. It's the best.
Sounds like a place I would like to visit. Ice cream is one of my particular weaknesses.
Mm.
About anything else? What's something that you've learned about yourself from all this?
I think I didn't catch what you said. It kind of paused.
Oh, I said, who else would like to share something that you learned about yourself?
I learned that despite a lockdown and et cetera stuff, despite purchasing a banjo with the intent to learn it, I have yet to do so 10 months in.
You can procrastinate even when you're limited to what you can do.
Yes, you can.
Beth, what have you learned about yourself in the last 6 months or so that will help you kind of visualize the setting that's going to be more effective for you in a workplace?
I feel like it might sound silly, but when I'm busier, I manage my time better. Whereas when I have a lot of free time, I like put things off and think, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. Like I have so much time. Whereas normally, because I have such a strict schedule, I just like go through everything quite rapidly, but get everything done. So I feel like I'd be better in an environment where I had a lot of tasks to do, although that might be quite stressful at times. Like I feel like I work more efficiently if I have a lot of things to do.
A lot of pressure and structure.
Yeah.
That's good to know because certain industries really lend themselves to that, but not only certain industries, but certain companies that are really driven, high energy companies will be a better fit for you than a similar company doing a similar type of work that has a more relaxed atmosphere. So when you're looking at corporate descriptions, you can pull up a company website and look at their values or their statements about the work experience there and see what keywords pop out and whether those really resonate with your personality to see if it's going to be a better fit for you. Let's see. Jacob, what about you? What is something you've learned about yourself that you think might impact what type of work setting would be a good fit for you?
I can probably definitely agree to what Beth just said, whatnot, because I know if I have a lot of free time, I am not getting anything done at all. I know that because during this, 2 weeks, I've had so much more free time than usual, because I'm not actively going anywhere. I'm just sitting in my room for most of the part. I mean, yeah, sure, I have a class here or there to go hop on, but other than that, I'm sitting in my room where I can just do just about anything whenever and not really have that strict time limit where to do things. I'd even with the regular schedule I have right now, if it weren't stuck to the digital for the 2 weeks, I'm still like that. So I definitely need something that's a bit more, keep me more busier, keep my attention longer than most things.
Keep it filled, organized, structured.
That's why I'm looking into like school counseling because I know it's going to keep me busy with a lot of things. So who knows what's going to come up and pop up on me?
That's right. That's right. Baz, I'm going to have you answer the same question, but I'm also going to add a new twist to it. Is sometimes stress not necessarily from too much to do? Because from what I'm hearing from both Beth and Jacob, part of their stress came from an emptiness or a void of structure and things to do. So is there such a thing as stress from absence of stress?
I
or
think
how would you word it?
I understand the question. I think that I definitely agree with the sentiment that Beth has that I need structure. I'm a big proponent of making lists. I have lists. If you could see my desk right now, there's a stack of index cards that I have to write things out. This is what needs to get done, or this is my schedule for the day, and I make a list for everything. And one, tones back the anxiety. Two, it helps me remember things because I also am kind of all over the place. I don't sit still very well, and I've learned I don't really love movies because I can't sit and focus on the movie for long enough, and if it's a really hard plot line to follow, I don't pay attention well enough to finish it because I'm I don't know what's going on. This is pointless. And so I think that a lot of times my the stress of not having anything to do and then realizing that you did nothing, it's the unproductivity of it stresses me out, if that makes sense, because I just feel like I'm wasting my time. And maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just taking time to rest or taking time to do other things that aren't necessarily what productivity looks like per se, if that makes any sense. I'm kind of all over the place.
Well, and sometimes doing things that are productive towards combating stress might be beneficial apart from what they produce outside of that particular goal. So what I was asking about, sometimes absence of requirements being a stress in itself, sometimes absence of requirements let us focus too much on a stress that we can't do anything about. It kind of ties back to what you and David both said about your faith playing a role, but finding a way to cope with stress that you can't do anything about, because quite honestly, a lot of times you're in a situation where you're going to face things that there's nothing you can do to change the outcome. So how do you deal with stress in those circumstances, and how do you adapt and accomplish the things you need to accomplish during those times of stress if there's nothing that you can do? And I like the idea too of making lists of what you can do to address those challenges and whatnot.
Yeah, if any of you need something to help you with your list, that's what I use. It's really great. I'm similar. I have to have lists, and if I don't have lists, I forget stuff. So between that and OneNote, trying to keep stuff together. But it
Doesn't
works.
get written down, it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
I stood Miss Lynn up today for a meeting because I didn't write it down.
Well, and if it doesn't get written down, did it actually happen? I've got notes that I need to put into our system so that I can document that I did meet with you earlier today. And so that's another thing, record keeping and whatnot. So I hope this has been an enjoyable 45 minutes to an hour or so. We still have about 10 minutes for anybody who wants to just chat, and no form structure for that, but I'll leave us going, but I will turn the Halloween music back on. Let's see if I can get it. There you go. You can hear it a little bit. Can you still hear me too?
No, yeah.
And I can hear you, so I have it where multiples are sharing at one time, so we're good. Just chat as you want to for the next couple of minutes or so. I really appreciate you being here this afternoon. I don't have any videos to share or anything like that. I will stop my background video and just be my normal self.
What are you guys doing for the weekend?
Nothing.
Okay.
I was so like Kurt.
I do have one housekeeping thing. Before you go, if you could just in the chat, type in how you felt about this afternoon. What do you think would be a fun, obviously this is not as much fun as getting together and playing a game of pool might be or something along that line. But what are some kind of fun social-ish types of things we can do on campus that provide opportunity to talk about career topics while at the same time relaxing and enjoying the company of one another? So if you've got ideas, just share it in chat. If you don't want to share it with everyone, you can change it from everyone to just me. That way, at least I'll get it. And I'm going to remove our co-host because I don't think that we need co-hosts at this point because we're not going to do any more spotlight. I always like to get a little feedback. But go ahead and keep sharing about what you're doing this weekend, anybody. I'm doing my first 5K.
Oh, nice.
That's so exciting. Amazing.
I'm just walking it. I'm not running it. I don't run.
Is your virtual
But it's a virtual one, yes. So my daughter and I are doing it tomorrow morning. And we're going to join each other by phone because she's in Clemson and I'm here in Lawrence County. And it's to raise money for our church to help with the community. So I'm excited about it.
That's so fun.
Not this weekend, but on Monday, I'm getting a cat done in fostering, so that's exciting.
Sweet.
Yeah, I
That's
know,
so
I'm really
cute. Does your dog like cats? Or is that going to be a problem?
So my dog right now is living in Somerville, so it won't be a problem, but in general, he loves cats. He gets too close to them and always gets like scratched in the face.
He just wants to be their friend.
Yeah.
Okay, Andrew that you guys met earlier, his like thing to do is he'll like nap while we work. Like he'll sit on my bed all day and nap while I'm working. And then when it's time to go to bed, he just starts pushing things off of my desk. Like candles, pens, water bottles, pictures, bit the corner of my poster off.
Oh wow. I feel like knocking things over is like a very cat thing to do.
He's so sassy. He like will not. Well, I'll like look at him and be like, stop, and he'll go.
Do it anyway.
Yes.
We'll look at you intently like,
No, he does, Jacob. He does. He's a child.
You know? Well, I'm not doing it either way.
I tell my roommates it's like having a kid because he's defiant.
We've had a